Sasha, hi.
Hi, Maggie. Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you for being on today. But I am doing a month, like a healing month, where I sort of talk to different healers about different ways of healing, from even like spiritual. Last week, I had my friend who does breath work. And it was funny because I was telling this on the phone recently. And he's like, you have to have Sasha on. And he told me, I want to say this right. Is it hypnotherapist or
That's right.
hypnotist? Okay.
Hypnotherapist. I'm a hypnotherapist and a life coach. Yes.
And a life coach. I love this. And so I'm just excited to talk to you because I feel like this is a world that is I know that it has helped so many people. I have not done it myself, and I'm curious, and I think I will be, we can talk after, but maybe having a session with you after this that but I hope this is okay to say, almost like a mysterious world a little bit, like when at least my experience of knowing about like hypnotherapist and things we used to see on like talk shows and like things like that where you're like, wait,
Yes.
so what is it? So I'm so happy that you're here. I was researching you just a little bit, and everything that you're about is just so beautiful and healing. And this is what we're talking about this month, but also me time. The whole podcast is sort of about that anyway. So thank you for being here. And I just want to talk to you. I'm so curious, and I have so many questions, and I want to know all about you and
Hmm.
how you came into this and how you discovered like hypnotherapy yourself, and then also like how you got into doing it anyway. So yeah, maybe we'll just like start at the
So
beginnings.
I'll start by sharing that I was just like you. When I first heard about hypnosis in the form of hypnotherapy, I was just like, what?
Yeah.
I I need something serious. I need like therapy. I need
Yeah.
something to heal my mind. I'm broken up here.
Oh,
And I was in a really bad place, honestly. And I was so distraught that I found this because I was so desperate. I had tried traditional therapy. I had gone to see a psychiatrist. I popped the pills, and none of it worked for me. And
okay.
I remember looking up hypnosis multiple times on the internet. And every time I would go on, I'd start doing research, and then I'd start seeing the stage show stuff, and I'd think, no, this must be wrong. And then one day I actually sat down and kept reading, and then I found out that there was something called hypnotherapy, which was the therapeutic form of hypnosis. And
Okay.
I thought, oh, okay, now that makes more sense to me. And to be totally honest, I went in for my first session and it wasn't a good experience.
Really? Wait, what
Yes, I'm
happened?
being
Can I
totally,
ask?
yes, I'm being totally honest with you on this. So I went in and here I am telling this woman just horrible things that I had experienced in my younger years. And she looked at me as though I was telling her, ain't no thing but a chicken wing, like that. And so she was just really very
Like she
cool.
was treating this like, okay, cool, whatever. When you were like
Yeah.
laying out like with this new person who was basically a stranger you were trusting. Oh, that's awful.
And I was so emotional. And I just honestly was in a place where I just felt so broken.
Yeah.
And I walked out of there thinking, I just had a few $100 go down the drain.
Wow.
And I had given up on it. And then a few weeks later, I got a call from a woman who I had called before, and she said, I've been out of town, but now that I'm back, I can totally hypnotize you. And I said, it doesn't work. No, I already tried it. It doesn't work. Thank you,
Uh-huh.
but no, thank
Uh-huh.
you. And she said, it does work. And I said, no, it doesn't. And
Oh,
she said, it does, and I will guarantee it. Maggie,
okay.
I went in. I told her, listen, make sure that you're going to back that up because I will take you up on your word. And she said, yes. And
Okay.
Maggie, session after session, I could feel the difference. And for
Wow.
me, honestly, this was life-changing because you've got to realize what my starting place was.
Do you
So,
want to talk
yeah,
about that at all? I was gonna say we talk on Me Time. I always talk about like these moments of impact that happen in our lives where we know we're not going to be the same after. Unfortunately, they're usually not they don't feel good. It's, I mean, obviously, birth of a child, all those beautiful things for sure. But what usually changes when I talk about me time or alone time, is something brutal that changes us forever. If you're open to sort of sharing that or where you were when you
Yeah,
went to, yeah.
yeah. So you know why I love to share? Because I love people hearing a story that goes from trauma to triumph. And I love motivating people and showing people that, you know what, it makes no difference how messed up that situation might have been that you lived through. There is hope and you
Yeah.
can heal and be a great version of yourself on the other side.
It also helps other people feel less alone if they hear other stories of people, and especially someone being so bold and brave as to share their story. They feel that sort of comfort of, I'm not alone in the world. Because I would imagine it feels, I mean, I know for my own experiences and things I've been through, you can feel very, you want to isolate, you want to disappear when you're going through those things. But anyway, yeah, speak to that as well, because now I'm so curious about you.
Yeah, so when I was 5 and my sister 3, we woke up one morning and we found that we were alone in our home. Our mother had disappeared.
What?
Yeah, so imagine being 5 and 3, and I could barely open the door. So we were inside, it felt like an eternity, of
Yeah.
course, to two little girls. But we woke up alone. We were at last able to get outside. We were hungry, so we went to the neighbors asking for food. They realized that something was wrong. They went outside and they saw that my mom's car door had been left open and there was no sight of my mother, and it was just really cold outside and they could see us both barefoot. So they call the police show up, they start to see the scenes of a crime, that something had happened, but there was no weapon, there was no body, there was nothing, just us. And then what ended up happening was that hours later, my father appeared. They wouldn't have been under the same roof because they were in the process of getting a divorce. My father was a really abusive guy.
Oh
Um,
God, Sasha.
yes. Not only was he beating me when he would get drunk, but on top of that, he was molesting me.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so one day my mom came home and she came to our home to find that my father had whipped my back with a belt because I wouldn't eat this beef soup. And for my mom, who had done everything to help my father heal, this was the last straw. She realized that she needed to save us. And so her focus went from trying to save him to saving us. And that's when she started moving forward with getting the divorce. So they wouldn't have been under the same roof. My father became the main suspect. Now, they asked my father a few questions and they let him go. They let him go and then they handed us over to my grandmother.
Oh, okay.
My father then disappears 2 days later. So he, of course, becomes the main suspect. I was raised by my grandmother on welfare. I was raised in a very tough home because my grandmother had definitely had a lot of mental issues herself. And my grandmother was the kind of person that she could keep it together in front of you, but at home, she would talk to herself. She would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and she would be talking loudly and just angrily. She'd be almost like as though she was fighting with somebody else. So I had a very tough childhood, but the one good thing that my grandmother really focused on was education. And she really did her best. Nobody's perfect, right? And
Mm,
even though she had her flaws, like I know my grandmother loved us and she did the best she could given the
circumstances.
bad, yes, and the
Oh
bad
my
deck of
God.
cards that she had to play with.
Sasha. Okay.
So
Wow.
yeah. So imagine that I finished school. My sister and I got some scholarship money to go to UCLA. So we both went.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at you all. Holy cat. I mean, I'm still processing. Wow. Okay. Okay, so you get scholarship money to go to UCLA.
Yes.
Like you must have been just amazing students.
Actually, I wasn't. You know why? I'm being totally honest with you here. I wasn't. You know why? Because
Why?
I was used to having my grandmother on top of us to do
Oh.
everything. So I had no self-discipline.
Oh,
So
interesting.
I was
Right.
initially a hot mess, to be totally
Oh my
honest
God,
with
that's so funny.
you. Yeah. And
A
so
very smart hot mess, but still. Yeah, okay.
later on, I would figure things out and then I would graduate with a B, which was good enough. So,
That's great. That's
but,
great.
but to be honest, especially in the beginning, I was a mess because I had never been away from the neighborhood that I had lived in because we didn't even have a car growing
Wow.
up. So
Wow.
I lived in a certain neighborhood and I never really walked out of there. And so when I went to
Wow.
UCLA, I started suffering from panic attacks. I wasn't used to being around so many people. And there's kids from all over the world there. And imagine that I felt so different because unlike these other kids, I had nothing. I had
Hmm.
nobody and I had no money. So everything felt like a struggle for me. And that's when I decided that I needed to know what had happened. So I asked an uncle who
Wow.
is right into the family. And, he said, I don't know. I have no idea. But a few weeks later, he said, if you want to go to Mexico, because I'm half Mexican,
Mhm.
on my father's side, if you want to go to Mexico, I will take you. And I thought, great, let's go. So imagine that we get on the plane, we get to the airport, and there in front of me, like nothing, Maggie, was my father.
I knew that's what you were gonna say. Oh my God.
After 15 years.
Oh my God. Sasha, do you have a okay. Do you have a book? I'm like, keep going. I mean, I haven't even heard the rest. I'm like, holy shit. Okay. Okay.
Ah.
Okay. So your dad's at the airport.
So I ask him what happened, and he tells me what happened is that, your mother's side of the family is racist because my dad was Black Mexican.
Mhm.
And he said, and I didn't have papers and I was an alcoholic. And I never thought I would get custody of you guys. So I took off. The truth is that your mom just took off with another man, and I'm as much of a victim as you are. So that's what he told me. And in retrospect, Maggie,
Yeah.
I think I believed him because I just wanted so badly to have family.
You
And
had to believe him almost. Like it was a survival at that point.
yes,
Holy
and
cow.
my grandmother was never nurturing with us. My grandmother was very much a militant kind of person when it came to her personality. It was like living with a sergeant. So,
Like
this
not
was my
emotional. Right.
yes, this was my first opportunity to really have that parent-child bond again after so many years.
It's
And
just so I'm sure we're craving. Oh my God.
so imagine that for 10 years, I became a part of his life. He had gone on to remarry, he had started to have more kids. I was very loving and very doting of my brothers and sisters. I was their Santa Claus. It turned out
Mhm.
that my dad and I had a lot of things in common, such as a love for archaeology and anthropology. My dad and I would travel all the time together to these amazing historical sites. So that went on for almost 10 years. And then at the end of those 10 years, his story started to slip.
Oh my God.
And one day I mentioned this to my uncle. And once again, same thing he had done to me before, where he says he knows nothing or it doesn't say a peep happened. A few weeks go by, and then he reaches out to me and he tells me, I've started having these epileptic seizures. And I'm afraid that if I die, I'm going to have to face your mother on the other side. And sitting there on his lawn chair, he told me how my father had murdered my mother in the same room that we were sleeping in all those years earlier.
No.
You can imagine, Maggie, the emotions that I experienced. I mean, it was just so many emotions at the same time, this sadness, this anger, this feeling of betrayal. It was just horrific.
Can't even imagine. And to have had, a parental figure for 10 years that you shared so much with, it's just like loss after loss after loss. Like that's, I can't even, this story, I can't even, oh my God.
Yeah. And so
So,
you can imagine it was really brutal for me. And during that time frame, I started having all kinds of physical ailments. I
mm,
started having migraines. I'd never had a migraine in my life before that. But
mm,
now I was having migraines. You see, I have a whole lot of hair. My hair
mhm.
started falling
Gorgeous
out.
hair.
Thank you. Thank you.
It started falling out.
It started falling out. And I started having neck and shoulder issues. My neck was so bad that I could only sleep upright like this. It was that severe.
Oh, wow. So it was
Yeah.
working itself out almost in your body and right, right.
Yes. And so I went to see a doctor because, in my mind, I was thinking that these issues were they could be, they could be associated with the stress, but in my mind back then, I didn't realize the mind and body connection.
Hmm.
So I went in just to work on the body issues, and the first doctor just gave me a prescription for Lexapro, and that was it.
Sure.
And I thought, this guy, didn't give me any clues as to anything that might be going on. I go make another appointment for another doctor. And this guy actually said, what's going on is that you have some emotional issues that you need to work on. And it's all up here. And I responded and said, I'm not making this up. Because I initially thought that he was telling me that I was making it up by his choice of words. But
Sure.
then he said, no, 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 I'm not telling you you're making it up. I'm telling you that there are things that you need to work on that are at the root of your physical ailments.
Hmm.
And so he said I should go find a book on the mind and body connection. And that's when I came
Wow.
across the work of Dr. John Sarno, where he talks about exactly that. So I read his book and it said about the subconscious mind. Plug that into Google, hypnosis popped up. And
Mm.
initially, like I mentioned before, I thought, oh no, that Vegas stuff, that's not what I need.
That Vegas stuff. Yeah. Mhm.
But that one day that I sat down and really did research, I realized that there was this other branch of hypnosis called hypnotherapy. And for me, it was life-changing. And once I started to experience the changes in my own life, I started thinking, oh my God, if it can work for me with all of my issues, what can it do for more normal people?
Oh, Sasha. My God.
So,
Oh my God. Okay. So keep going.
so, after that, I got certified. I'm double certified. I'm a total nerd. I love this. I'm passionate, honestly, when it comes to this line of work.
Yeah.
And then I started growing my practice. And next thing you know, I started expanding it. And now I've got two offices, one in LA, which is my very famous one for hypnotherapy.
Hmm.
And then we have one in Northern California, and I'm now branching out into Florida.
Holy cow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So when you went to the second with the woman who said, I
Hmm.
guarantee you it'll work. What was different? How did she do it different than the first person? Because obviously, what you felt and got from that experience, and then obviously reading about it, is it, well, I'll let you tell, but like led you into doing this yourself. And so I'm curious, what didn't you say you went for like in one session, you were like, it was completely different? I know you went several, but like, I'm just curious about that, who she
Yeah.
was. And that, yeah.
Yeah, that first session was very different from the previous one. Number one, I felt that she really listened to me.
Hmm.
Um, number two, I could feel her empathy and compassion. And actually, it's interesting because as I was formulating my own style, I made sure to include those in there as well. The
Hmm.
third thing was that she made sure to tell me everything that we did before we did it. And as somebody who's a trauma survivor, that was really important to me because the first woman didn't. And at one point, I opened up my eyes to even see where she was in the room.
Oh, that gave me chills. Yeah, that's so scary. After everything you told her and sorry, now I'm angry at this first person. I mean, I'm listening to your story and I am just floored. And so to have tossed that off in some way that was like another day at the office or however she was sort of treating you, like, oh, dime a dozen, like, no, no. Anyway, okay, so so then you had this experience and then this was your like, I want to take my experience here and help other people as
Yes.
well. Oh my God.
I still
Yeah.
remember once I was on vacation. I went for my birthday to learn how to scuba dive. And I still remember I was on
Awesome.
this, yeah, on this boat, and I had this really cute guy next to me. And he said, "Gosh, isn't this great? Isn't this what you would be doing if you had all the money in the world?" And I said, uh, no, still be doing what I'm doing now, actually. So I
Wow.
so I really do believe that, from that darkness came out this great light. And I really do believe that what was once my weakness is now my strength as well.
I am like, I have had chills so many times as you've been talking. Like, you're an angel on earth. I mean, to have survived what you have survived and then to heal or I should say work on healing yourself and then take what you have learned and help other people. Like I'm convinced. Like I think you're an angel
Oh,
on earth. I hate that I obviously experienced all of that, but my God, like what you're doing and what you can do for other people and this story you can share, like, I'm my God, like like this is crazy. I hope your sister is okay. And I know you mentioned brothers too. So I'm just gonna say that because as you were talking, I was like, you had mentioned your sister, you were 5 and 3. Anyway, so when you went to UCLA, so you went to UCLA, you discover hypnotherapy after all of this. You now have this, like, I'm not surprised at all that you're opening multiple places. I mean, you're incredible. I have questions just about the experience of the subconscious, like going into that space and how that works and how you do it. Say for somebody who's kind of just hearing about it. I mean, I know a little, but like for the first time, what I mean, like I have like this sounds like the kind of thing that almost for anything, you used to hear about hypnotism and like it'll help you quit smoking and it'll help and that's great. Maybe it does all those things too, but trauma and healing and like I feel like I'm hearing more about this now as a resource and a tool and so I'm myself curious, but I'm also like, as far as like what can a person on whatever level say, why would like how could hypnotherapy be great for me, like what does it look at and how does it address anything, and also how does it work?
so, back in the day, the use of hypnosis was pretty much used by the elite, by royalty and the very wealthy back in the day. And so, yeah.
Really?
Yes. And it actually goes all the way back to the Egyptians. That's how old it is,
I
because
don't
the hypnotic state is part of the human condition. Maggie, how many times have you caught yourself kind of looking at one point, kind of like in a daze, just kind of like relaxed, deeply relaxed, like that kind of?
all the time, like
You're in a
to the
hypnotic
point where people
state.
will tell me to snap out of it. Yeah.
Or when you're driving and you all of a sudden come to and you realize, gosh darn it, I already passed my exit, maybe two exits back.
Even with the GPS on and a giant screen in front of me, that happens to me all the time.
Yeah, so the hypnotic state is part of the human condition. And so our goal is to tap into it for your benefit. So what we do is first of all, when you come in, we talk about what's going on. You tell us, what you'd like to change and how you would like things to be. And what we're doing the whole time is we are typing away as many notes, taking as many notes as possible, because the more we fine tune to you, the better the results we're going to get.
Mhm.
If we were to give you a suggestion that did not go well with you, your mind would just bing, give it the finger, and that would be it.
Okay. Interesting. Like
Yeah.
it wouldn't absorb that, right? It would, okay.
No, your mind would be like, what? What did
Right.
she just say? Yeah, it
Right.
would not. And so what we do is we put you in a deeply relaxed state. The goal is to make it so that your brain's wavelengths drop. Your mind opens up, it becomes porous, and it's able to absorb all of these positive suggestions. And the great thing is that they're in line with what you want. And because they resonate with you, something just clicks within you. And so we give you these suggestions. And at my office, we have really good equipment. So we also record the session for you.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're very particular. My office is very particular as to how we go about things. And so we record it for you. And the goal is to make it so that in between our sessions, you're listening to it at night. Because one of the laws of the subconscious mind is of retraining the subconscious mind is the law of compounding. The more the subconscious mind hears something, the more it gets it.
Hmm. Hmm. Like
So,
a habit almost, right, right.
what we are really focusing on doing is on retraining the mind, on
Wow.
reprogramming. Yeah, the goal is to remove all the faulty programming and start to input, all this new programming. And now we're actually about to add this neurosomatic reconditioning technique that I've been working on. And yeah, so I'm really excited because now we're going to be integrating the mind and body at my office. So this is a very exciting time. And I'm a total nerd. That's why I'm always thinking of what next.
I love that. I have done like EMDR
Yes.
therapy before. Is that similar? And like, because there's like an eye tapping. Hmm.
So we sometimes will do eye integration techniques. The difference is that we do not have people relive anything that's non-positive.
That's nice. In a way.
Yeah.
Like, meaning I guess I can understand how revisiting something maybe to if there's I guess in the experience something to release or whatever, I can see that, but it's also feels it's very hard
Yes.
on my body. I know when I leave, I can't the few times I've done it, I've not really been able to have like a plan after. I am
Yeah.
s- so okay, so you get into like a deeply relaxed state and
Mhm.
you've already sort of talked and gone through what you want to work on. Okay. Or look at. Yeah.
Yeah, so we give the person the suggestions and then we count them back out. We send the person a copy of their audio. And then after that, as each session progresses, we're fine-tuning the suggestions. Because as you know, when it comes to, mental health, it's complex and there are different layers of things that we work on.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and honestly, people usually only need a certain number of sessions. In fact, the funny thing is that, many of our clients include MFTs and psychologists. They are great clients. You can imagine how many MFTs I've helped to actually pass their exams. So,
Okay, so how that would be like, and this is like my next question, which I think was sort of about, well, two things. One of the things I had thought about was you've already said is sort of, is there a way to I don't know, say practice or work on it at home, which you've already mentioned, like you listen to it as sleep or you listen to it in the day. When did you say in your sleep? You kind of listen to it as you go to sleep?
so you listen to it, yes, right before you go to bed, because it turns out that whatever you last input into your mind is the first thing that your subconscious mind is going to process as you sleep. That's why you should not be watching Walking Dead or news before going to bed.
Oh,
Honestly, yeah, definitely don't do that.
I
And
have
so
stopped doing that for sure, but I haven't like been proactive about what I do input before I go to bed. I've just been very clear about we don't watch scary things, Maggie. Like we're not going to do that because that ends up in bad dreams and but interesting. So like what you kind of feed yourself as you're going to sleep is just as important as what you don't allow yourself when you go to sleep.
Yes, and the great thing, by the way, is that I'm in the process of creating an app. So when that's ready, you'll be able to start inputting some good things that are in line with what you want as well. Because I'm going to make all kinds of content. Your average hypnotherapist hypnotizes probably a certain amount of people a week. I've hypnotized a whole lot. I've been at this for over 16 years. And
Wow.
yeah, it's surreal.
Wow. I mean, and in terms of like, okay, if a person would say, am I a good candidate?
Mhm.
Who is a good candidate for hypnotherapy? I mean, I think I know the answer to this, anyone, but I want to hear like just for anyone listening who's sort of like, oh, I'm kind of intimidated or how could this be helpful to me?
A good candidate is somebody who's really ready for a change.
Mhm.
Honestly, you just wanting that change alone, it'll work miracles. I always tell people, like when people tell me, oh my God, I can't believe I was able to do this or that. I always tell them, I was merely your humble navigator. It was really you who made that change. And so it's you that you need to really be proud of.
That's so nice of you to say, but will also say that we need a guide. You
Yes,
need someone to walk you through that,
totally. And
or
even
else we don't.
I,
Yeah,
even I will have somebody else a lot of times hypnotize me for certain things. Because sometimes you really do need a guide. I mean, it just is what it is.
right, right. And I would feel, I mean, if the person with the right person, obviously, and with you, obviously, I'd feel better, especially if I'm going into a state like that, just having a person who knows exactly. Then I feel like I could probably get more out of the experience because I wouldn't be so uncomfortable or feeling unsafe, um, alone. And so when you go into this relaxed state, because you said you don't revisit the memory, like you don't really have to relive the pain, but how do you what brings you out of it? How do you go back into the world? Like after
Yeah.
it, yeah. So you
So
go or go through that process, even once you're in the relaxed state. My whole body just relaxed when you said like one thing we do is you don't have to relive that pain. And I'm like, okay, sign me
yeah,
up. But okay. So explain that a little bit as well.
yeah. So the very interesting thing is that after a session, you are golden. In fact, I'll share a very interesting thing that I've consistently seen in my office. So, there are actually a lot of people that are afraid to drive on PCH.
I'm I'll do it, but I also get that. Okay, go on.
Yes,
It's
especially
wild.
yes, when it turns from the 10 to the 1. A lot of
Yeah,
people get really nervous. They feel like that the lanes they feel, there's the curve, and there's also the fact that they feel like the lanes are kind of look leaner to
they
them.
do. They
And
do.
yeah, and so a lot of people have this fear about driving on PCH, but I have had it happen a few times where I have hypnotized people to get rid of that fear, and right after they were able to drive it.
Like that day.
Yes. Yeah. So most things are going to take a certain number of sessions, but from time to time, there are certain things that people will just nail. So smoking cessation is actually one of them.
Really, like one session.
Yeah, so we sell a 2-session package at my office, but oftentimes people will nail it after the first one. And then the second one is just to put those last nails on the coffin. And then I tell people, like, what else do you want to throw in? Like, do you want
Right.
me to boost your self-confidence? What else is important to you? We'll throw that in.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I love this. I love this already. But you also, I think, nailed it too with like you have to be really ready. And I think that sometimes we don't even know. I know I'll just speak for myself, but sometimes I will like kind of discover something or it'll come up in the process. Smoking is so specific, or like, hey, I'm afraid of this street is so specific to be like, I want that out. I want that handled. Like, you'd be so clear and so ready. Whereas, like, these other parts of ourselves are just kind of like, they're gray areas. You want to like, you have to almost like talk and find them. You just know you feel them in your body. At least for me, I'll know I feel something in my body that feels off or triggered or, that sort of heightened, whatever that thing is, the fight or flight or whatever. And I won't even be able to tell you, or when I say the word, like I feel overwhelmed, I'm just crying right now because I feel overwhelmed, but I actually don't know. I feel like it's so many things that are coming up in whatever it is, whether it's grief or fear or whatever. And I won't be able to say like one thing. I will have to take time. I will have to talk about it. And then when I can find the thing that's like, ah, that's what it is, then I would be like, oh, this is why you need to talk about these things, I guess, before going in. Why something like smoking is like, I want to quit smoking.
Yeah.
It's not simple. I'm not saying that, but it's a very clear
Mhm.
intention. Um, where I feel like with me, I would be like, well, people pleasing, overthinking, trauma. The list would go on. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It depends on the issues, but because on one spectrum is something like smoking cessation, where a person can quit in 1 to 2 sessions, and then on the other spectrum is
Yeah.
anything having to do with eating and weight loss. Let me tell
Oh,
you, that is much more complex. That's a different animal in itself.
is that because, I mean, who knows why, but I recently, well, a friend of mine, we were talking about sort of process addictions
Mhm.
versus addiction, like when you're addicted to something you can quit versus if there is an addiction to something you can't live without, like food or
Mhm.
something like that. I'm not speaking on this like I'm not an expert. I'm only speaking on this as some in a conversation I had recently. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, that that is a process addiction, but it's almost like the relationship to the thing is different almost. Is that true or am I like way off?
So the big difference is this. You can put down the cigarette and you don't, there's a good chance that you will never ever pick it up because it doesn't have to, it's not a have to, in your life. When
Right.
it comes to eating, you have to eat.
Yeah. And you have
So
to
there
be around it. You have to, well, I mean, you have to do it to survive, but also everywhere you go, everything is about food. Yes.
yes. And so
Yeah.
there are at least a few opportunities in the day to get it right or wrong. So that's, and the thing about anything having to do with eating is that it's complex. It's not just about food. It's about the emotions. It's about the habits that you have from way back.
Right.
All that stuff comes into play. And that's why something such as eating, it takes more conditioning. In
Right.
fact, the first program I ever created was my mindful eating plus weight release program because I kept hypnotizing women and giving them the same suggestions over and over again.
Wow. Unbelievable. Like even to see that like you probably this is why where do you have a book? I'm
So
like,
I'm in the process of, yeah,
okay.
yes.
I'm like, because I'm sure all of this information and the connection even between, say, women and just everything that you're talking, like I'm absolutely fascinated right now. And I want to read your book as soon as please tell
Um,
us so we can like, promote it and everything else. But I want to, this feels like really healing, like and I don't want to put a time frame on it, but it feels like you get to it really quickly, like the root of things and the healing can start taking place rather than like 10 sessions of, you know, talking or laying everything out and then getting to it. It sounds like you can start the process like day one.
I had a client who had been working on the same issues for decades, and in just a matter of a few sessions, she was able to knock those out. That's how powerful this can be. Yeah, yeah. It really is amazing.
You have
Hypnotherapy.
me more excited about it than afraid or like there's this like mystere around it almost that like you're just blasting out of the water. It's like, oh, okay. there's nothing. In fact, now I'm like, oh, why haven't I done this yet?
Right. And this is
Yeah.
the thing too, is that I explain to people that what we're doing is we're just triggering certain mechanisms in the mind so that things function for you the way they should. That's all we're doing, honestly. And one of the things that I really enjoy doing is making it so that our clients understand the whole process. In fact, what I love is when people come in and they reiterate something that I've taught them in the past, and they say, "Oh yeah, because you blah 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 blah, and that's why this and this and this happens." I'm like, oh, "Yay!"
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing that even just in this Zoom with you that we're having right now on this podcast. Like, I can't imagine. I mean, also you just have a natural, like you have a natural way that feel like I would imagine everyone feels safe with you upon meeting you initially. Like even just opening the Zoom today and we've never met. I was just like, "Oh, I feel totally safe in this person's company."
Thank you. I
Amazing.
I appreciate that. And honestly, something that, a lot of people don't talk about that I think has been the key to my success is that I really value connection. Nobody ever talks about that, but I swear to God, it's how the magic happens. In fact, in the last few years, I've realized that one of the reasons why I've been so successful is because I'm not just following these techniques, doing certain techniques. I'm also channeling. I have a
Yeah.
spiritual side to me, and I really do believe that we are all connected to something larger.
Yeah.
And I always, when I'm working with a person, I'm just like, you know what, higher power, please,
Come
please
in.
help me. Yeah,
How do
come in.
you feel? Do you feel, does that show up in the way of uh like say guides, like spirit? Like how does that and does that inform like the hypnotherapy? Because I am so down. Um, but like yeah, so you ask kind of like for guidance or permission or whatever, and then what happens?
There, I swear, it's almost like at times, it's almost like somebody's whispering in my ear, tell her about That happens all the time. In fact, there are times even, especially when I don't see that many people. The majority of my staff, they see the majority of our clients, but I have a few select people that I work with,
Mhm.
and I'm so connected to them that I might be washing my face. I kid you not. I was
I
on a
believe you. I
cruise
believe you. Uh-huh.
2 weeks ago, and I'm washing my face, and I'm getting a message for a client.
Oh my God, really?
So I believe that that is part of the magic and that's how I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing because I'm getting help. It's not
Yeah.
just me. And
Yes.
people have their guides, their angels. I have
Yep.
one particular client that I swear to God, she has somebody that's constantly checking in. Hey, give her a call. Hey, yeah, I swear to God, all the time.
Really?
Um,
I love that because I think it's sort of what you just said about like the it's almost like you went into this work and then it was like and all of the angels kind of swooped in and were like, and we're going to assist you and we're
yeah.
going to support you in this as well because like I do feel like certain people have that ability or capability more than others, like that the channel, like the open channel, and maybe we're all capable of it, but I do feel like certain people in what they do and their awareness and they have, you can communicate, you can have that. And it's funny because I was thinking about that, like in energy, like energy work, we'll just sort of put it in that like category of like, when it's stuff you can't necessarily see, even though I think you can feel it, it's not necessarily, as tangible or something you can explain or whatever, but you just know. It's sort of like what you were saying that when you say something to someone and, their brain, they're like flicks it away because it's like that doesn't resonate as like truth with me. But then when it does, it
Mhm.
it really, really, really lands, it like settles your whole system down. So to have that sort of assistance and guidance and have that be resonating with people as well, like my mind is blown. It's
Yes.
really
In fact,
amazing.
it would be my pleasure to hypnotize you.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. When we get off our podcast, I will, I'm fascinated. And I'm really floored by you specifically. Like, I hope everybody that's been listening is, I mean, I know they are, but like this has been one of my most favorite, like, one of my most favorite people I've met in, well, in the experience, I'll say even of healers, but especially for sure on this podcast. Like, you're an incredible person who's just gone through so much, and to land here helping other people in the way that you're doing it and the way that you're talking about it. And I don't even know, uh like, that's why I'm like, oh, no wonder you're a channeler. No wonder you're like a conduit for the angels. Because you are one.
Oh, thank you. And let me tell you that one of the blessings that I myself, there are many blessings that I've gotten along the process, along the way, but one of them is definitely that I really do believe that we all have, regardless of whether we realize it or not, we all have our guides around us.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when people would come into the office, they wouldn't come in by themselves. And you could.
Oh, really?
Yes, I'll tell you
Uh-huh.
an interesting story. I had a client come in. Her father had passed away when she was 6 years old.
Mhm.
And I think it was just so tough for her emotionally that her mind completely blocked out all memory of him. I mean, she was 6 years old, so she would have had some memories, but she
Yeah.
had none. So I had already worked with her on a different topic, and she said, Sasha, I'm ready to remember my father. So she came in and we worked on that. And then she was able to remember all kinds of things. I remember seeing her chuckle because she said, oh my God, my dad has a great sense of humor.
Oh,
Well, yeah, she was able to remember all kinds of stuff that she had no recollection of. And it was just so heartwarming. And what happened is that she decided she wanted to do another one of these sessions. So she comes back in. And so imagine that she's in front of me. Here's the recliner, and I'm just sitting here in front of her. And then I keep looking over to the right because at the LA office, we have a sofa here. And over on the end, I could feel that man's presence.
oh,
I,
chills. I have chills again.
his presence. I
Yeah.
keep looking at her, but I keep looking over there over
Yeah.
and over. And in my head, a part of me is thinking, am I going nuts? Like, what is going on? Even I am doubting myself.
No,
I'm even
no.
doubting myself. And then, we're all human. And I'm just like, what is going on here? Because I'd never had anything happen like that before. And what ended up happening was that all of a sudden, I hear in my mind, tell her I could feel him next to me. And I could hear like it's I didn't hear his voice, but I could hear this these words that were not from me. Tell her that I'm proud of the woman that she's become.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Did you tell her?
I did. And so what ended up happening was very touching for her. It was a great experience. And what happened was that months later, I get in touch with her just to say hi and check in on her. And she tells me, oh my God, Sasha, I have to tell you what happened. So weeks after, my grandmother called me and she told me, your father was in touch with you. He communicated with you, didn't he? And she was just like, yes, he did. How did you know? And she said, because I dreamt with him. I dreamt with it. And can you believe it? And so it was just a reinforcement that it was him that
Man,
day. It
I
was him.
believe it. I totally believe it, but I like, it takes someone to like bring that, to somebody. Like, I feel like that's why that's incredible. And her grandmother was like, "Oh, I dreamt about it." And
Yes.
oh my God.
I'll tell you another interesting story that happened. This is probably my all-time favorite one that
Okay.
happened in with hypnotherapy. I had a kid client that came in because he had been in a horrible sea-doo accident where he had been hit at high impact, had completely crushed his left hip, leg, and his foot. They had to airlift him out of the water. He had had
Oh,
surgeries, and his mother had brought him in because she was very scared of his mental state. And she really trusted me because I'd already worked with her daughter. I had worked with her, and we just had a lot of rapport. So imagine that I have this kid in front of me, and I ask him, "How can I help you?" And he explained to me how they had told him that the chances of him being able to walk were next to nil. So I said, "Okay, so I get that, but once again, how am I going to help you?" And he said, "I want to walk." And so I told him, "I'll tell you what, I cannot guarantee that. I cannot promise you something that is not in my hands, but I'll tell you what, I believe in miracles. And if your mom gives us the green light, I will start giving you suggestions to heal." So I started doing exactly that. The mom would constantly bring him in. I was hypnotizing him, hypnotizing him. I think we had already done about 5 sessions. So I'd already given him the core of all the sessions he was probably going to need, suggestions he was going to need to heal. So I had checked in on them. I hadn't heard back from them. Months went by. And then one day, the mom reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I want to make the next appointment for my son." So she makes the appointment. And when he came in, instead of coming in with the walker, he came in walking.
Stop it.
True story. That kid is now probably about 22 or 23 years old.
Oh
He
my
works,
gosh.
he lives a normal life. True story.
Holy cow.
And that is a great example of mind over matter.
Okay. Yeah, unbelievable. So
Mhm.
how did you know? I mean, of course, it's what you do, but I'm like, what to say, what to do, how to heal. Like that's incredible, Sasha. Like that story because it's showing too that it's like the mind body thing. It's one thing. When we're dealing with trauma or places that's in the body, I've dealt with that, but like to have an actual physical ailment so purely healed from hypnosis, like that is incredible. Like that is it's miraculous. And yet at the same time, there was work and practice there that did it.
Yeah. And so I
Oh,
just, and that would, let me tell you, that was one of those situations where I was like, "God, this is all you. I'm just, I'm just the conduit. God, help me here." This is
oh,
all you.
yes. But
And
I love that story. That is so beautiful. And now I'm just so anxious to experience this myself. I guess before we is there anything else you would like to add or anything I didn't ask that you would like to sort of add in about your practice, like what you do?
I think the most important thing is that people believe in what's in their heart, in the vision that they have for themselves. And I really do believe that if God has put a vision in your heart for a reason, it's there for a reason because you're supposed to do something with it. And it's your job to move forward with it. And if you need help to do that, my office and I would love to help you with that.
That's beautiful. A vision for yourself. That's
Yeah.
your uh I mean, again, that just sort of wiped out my whole like, so who would be a candidate? That's everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody can heal and benefit from this. Um, Sasha, you're one of the most incredible people I think I've ever talked to.
Hey,
Thank you so much for this time and sharing what you do. And I'm going to reach out to you because I'm like all in. Like I was curious and now I'm like, I need this tomorrow. But I'm so excited for everyone else who does it, who's it kind of like me that was curious, didn't really know about it, has some idea based on some maybe weird thing we saw on TV at some point, to now have this clarity around how healing this experience can be. Wow.
thank you for having me on. It's been great.
Oh my God, I love it.